What's up, Kevin?
Hey, Tom, good to see you, buddy. Congratulations. I've seen the movie three times. I think Newton Thomas Siegel's cinematography is brilliant. That Wonder in the car, like Children of Men style, was
Yeah.
amazing. Henry Jackman's score is brilliant. One of the things I love about this film, though, your character goes through a very emotionally weighted arc. You're going through a
hmm
ton of emotion in the film, and while you're not really going through these things in real life, you're still performing them and having to emotionally deal with it. And I wonder for you personally, as you leave a project like this, how does it change you personally? Do you feel changed at all as a person after you having to take on the weight of this character?
I don't think I necessarily changed as a person because of the emotional kind of roller coaster I'd been on. I definitely changed as a person because of the information and the education that I'd had in people suffering from addiction, veterans coming home and not receiving the help that they deserve, um, and that sort of thing. So the film definitely changed my perspective on a few problems. But I wouldn't say that this emotional roller coaster that was making this film changed the way I am.
Hmm. One thing I find interesting is once we get to the Cherry chapter. First of all, I love
Mm.
the second chapter with Basic when he goes into the cool different aspect
Yeah.
ratio shift. But when we get to the Cherry chapter, we see your character go through this arc of he joins the military, he goes through basic training, he gets the uniform, and then he's put into an actual battle situation where the quote unquote Cherry moment happens. And I found that interesting. And I was thinking, I know you're getting a ton of Spider-Man questions, but I found it interesting to think about that arc for you when you get the role, the homage, getting the role, getting into the costume for the first time, doing all the rehearsals. But once you get on the set and are put into the actual moment, like
Mm.
Cherry was, I'm not comparing war to filmmaking, just the idea of it.
Understood. Yeah.
Is there a Cherry moment for you as Spider-Man where you're actually put into it for the first time?
Absolutely. I mean, I remember when I did my audition, I got the part. Um, I had like 2 or 3 days to kind of adjust to how my life was going to change, and then I was on a plane on my way to Berlin to start shooting, and I couldn't. I remember being on set with Chris Evans doing this fight scene, and kind of like, this isn't real. This isn't real. There's no way this is real. And he was also in his full Captain America getup, and I was in a mocap suit with a helmet on and two cameras, and I've never felt like such a dick in my life. Um, I remember being like this. I thought I was going to get this brand new Spider-Man suit, and I was wearing grey pajamas. But yeah, I definitely did have that moment where I sort of had to pinch myself and be like, "This is your reality now. You better deal with it." And it was, and I'm glad I'm still here. I'm glad they haven't got rid of me.
Yeah, well, you're incredible. One of the things I find really interesting about your career, the first time I ever talked to you was The Impossible. And I think the projects that you've chosen throughout your career are phenomenal. You have an amazing filmography already built. Devil All the Time, this film are very R-rated films. And I really find it interesting because you have a huge fan base. A lot of your fans are younger people. And I think it's interesting that you're taking on these films because they're cautionary tales, essentially, to
hmm
younger people. And I wonder, do you feel a certain responsibility as an actor when taking on heavy material like this, knowing that you have a lot of younger fans who are going to be like, oh man, I really want to see the new Tom Holland movie, but I'm 13. I probably shouldn't see Cherry. Or what is that process like in your mind?
I think I am probably due to post something, sort of giving parents with children that are fans of mine a sort of warning that this film is, massively inappropriate, while also having a strong message and something that I think is good for kids to see. One of the big things for us while making this film was we were adamant that we weren't going to romanticize war or drugs.
Right.
And I think you could probably agree that when you watch this film, there's no part of you that's like, do you know what? I'm gonna try heroin. So
No.
I think it's a double-edged sword. There are aspects of the film which I think are incredibly inappropriate for a younger audience, but then there's also a message that goes out throughout the entirety of the film that I think will be very valuable. I think at the right time, a younger audience should see this film. But I think I am probably going to have to post something to just say to people like, listen, I know your kids are fans of mine. That's great. I love them to bits, but this might not be the film for them. Apple will be furious with me. Apple will be like, how dare you? We wanted millions of people to watch this film. But I think I've got more of a responsibility than helping out Apple's box office bonuses.
Yeah, well, it's a brilliant film. Congratulations on the film. I talked to Daisy Ridley earlier today for an interview. She told me to tell you hi and also congratulations
Oh,
on Cherry. So
oh, lovely. That's nice to hear.
Cool. Well,
All
Tom,
right,
always a pleasure
Kevin.
to talk to you. And it
Always
was
a
great
pleasure,
seeing your
mate.
brother in the film too. That was so cool. I love that whole circle shot. It was so cool, man.
The cool little thing is we are. I'll tell. I won't cut it off. They have this little thing now where he plays in that film called the Shaker Kid. The reason he's called the Shaker Kid is because that scene takes place in Shaker Square, which is a place in Cleveland. He's a drug dealer. Obviously, you've seen it. We have this idea that in every film I'm in, Harry will reprise his role as the Shaky Kid. So he's now
Yes.
in Spider-Man 3 as the MCU's version of the Shaky Kid.
I am all in for this. All right. Well,
Yeah,
Tom, they're wrapping me. Thank you so much for that extra part at the end there. Hope you're staying safe and congratulations on the film. It's absolutely
likewise.
brilliant.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it. Stay safe, mate.
There's a moment when Holland's character sees you for the first time, and we hear this beautiful love theme that Jackman put
Mhm.
together for their main romantic love element of the characters. And I wanted to know when the first time you heard that and what that meant for you to hear that score, because you're performing it on set. I'm assuming you didn't hear Jackman's music then, but then when you see it
No.
cut together, how did that feel for you to see that scene like that, like with that music?
It's always odd because I'm watching myself, but the fact that my heart still swelled in that moment, I think speaks volumes to that piece of music.
Yeah, it's an incredible piece of music. One of the things I love about this story, obviously, we see your characters go through a gigantic emotional arc throughout the film, ups
Hmm.
and downs. And I wonder, like, you're playing characters that are going through this. You're not actually going through it personally yourselves. But I wonder, once the filming is ending, as you leave the project, do you feel changed at all personally, just from an emotional perspective? Like, do you see life differently after going through this person's shoes?
Yeah, I think after telling a story like this, I did find myself being far more grateful for life in general. The smaller
Mm,
things, the smaller details that I think typically you would sort of brush past or forget. I'm sure it was annoying for my partner, but like walking slower down the street just to like take things in a bit more, Of course, everyone else is like, keep moving, which I also understand. But yeah, I think it would be very difficult to come off of telling a story like this without having been affected in any way.
Yeah, there's a phenomenal scene early in the film when Holland's character is essentially crying on the bed, and you say you never have to be sorry for the way you feel.
Hmm.
And it's just a really beautiful line. And I feel like it speaks volumes to the way we need to be in our lives, and like we should be able to
Completely.
be emotional and portray that. I just wanted to ask you about that line in particular. That scene is really beautiful, and just kind of what that scene meant to you and what that line means to you.
That's actually my favorite line in the movie. I read it
Oh
first.
wow,
Yeah,
that's
I just
cool.
think I don't know why it hits really hard because I think it's something that when someone says that to you or allows you that space, it's a feeling unlike anything else because it's not something that we often get
Yes.
in our lives. I do appreciate now it feels like more people are speaking up about mental health and creating space for that conversation. And I do feel lucky to be living in a time where that is a priority and something that we can be more open and honest about. But I think that there's a long way to go in regards to that. So yeah, when I read that line in the sides for the first time in my audition, it
Mm.
tore into me.
Yeah. Yeah, you feel it in that scene. It's an incredible sequence, and obviously the way the Russos and Newton Thomas Siegel are shooting it very close up,
Hmm.
we're very intimate in that sequence. So I found it really cool. This is a rare film, in my opinion, where the really cool technical side of the filmmaking, the shots, really service the story. They're not just done to be
Completely.
cool shots. Like there's that
Right.
awesome wonder in the car, like that Children of Men wonder
Hmm.
almost when they get in the car with Lightfoot and Holland's character. For you, aside from the performance and aside from the emotional depth that you go to, what was your favorite shot to watch get executed just on set as a filmmaking fan? Like, was there a shot in particular that blew your mind how they were able to pull it off?
Yeah, honestly, the one in the car, because
Oh,
how did they do that? Apparently, that took them like hours to shoot too. I was
yeah,
speaking to everyone about it, like, it was a nightmare, but it looked so cool. That I was so impressed because on set, I could not picture what this movie was going to look like
yeah,
because all of these shots were so stylistic. But like you said, it's not done. It's not done in a frivolous way. It is very intentional, and the brothers did everything with purpose, which I respect so much as an artist. Um, Jeff Haley, our ACAM operator, is unbelievable. There's the
yeah,
scene right after the binge, and it's like
Yep.
floating over all of us, passed out like straight up to Tom's butt. Um, that I
That's
thought
right. That's
was
right.
like, yeah, that I thought was beautiful. Also in the party scene in the restaurant,
In the
because
bar.
everyone,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, because I always wonder, I was like, how do they do that in movies? They make you stand still. That's how they do it.
Oh, you were really
Everyone's
frozen. That's
everyone's frozen like
cool.
mannequins. Yeah, which made it. I thought it was so cool to watch it shoot, and then to watch Jeff like dance among all of these bodies and hitting all of these incredible moments. It was just, oh man, it was really neat to watch.
Yeah, it was awesome. And that's one of the beautiful things about the movies. You can kind of go back and just watch it from a technical perspective if you want to as well. But
Yeah.
congratulations to you on the film. To wrap me up, I just want to say thank you for your time. Thank you for your
Thanks for
beautiful
asking
performance in
interesting
the
questions,
film.
Kevin. Thank you.
Yeah,
This was
thanks,
this was
man.
really fun.
Getting
All
used to
right.
this whole WebEx thing. Sorry.
Yeah, it's
Good to see
hard.
you guys.
Good to
Great
see
to see
you. How
you,
you doing?
man.
Great to see you guys. You guys know I love the film. Congratulations. I've seen it 3 times now. Newton Thomas Siegel's cinematography is incredible. Henry Jackman's score, that theme we hear when Holland sees Bravo's character for the first time, that love theme is just so beautiful. I want to talk to you both about the technical aspect of your film and kind of having it service your storytelling, because you see a lot of films sometimes where the technical shots can look cool, but then they're just there to look cool. And here it's more about they actually service the story, that wonder in the car. Everything about it makes you immersed in the environment. And I want to ask you about that process. What comes first, the emotion of the scene or the shot? And how do you blend them together to have it service each other?
Well, you want to know what the
Great question.
emotion of the scene is and what the story is you're trying to tell. This movie was intended to be very subjective, just like the novel. What's beautiful about the novel is these abstract opinions that the narrator has about life. We wanted to find a way to convey the gonzo aspect of the book into the film using visual language to do that, using all the tools at our disposal. We didn't sit around and go, hey, we have an interesting idea for a wonder in a car. We sat around and went, hey, this is about that mundanity of life. This is breaking away. This is, being in a working class town in the Rust Belt, trying to figure out what the hell you're going to do with your days. And then we come up with the idea of making you feel like what it's like to be in the car, having those conversations, arguing about stupid shit, and smoking weed. And that's really what that's about, is like sitting in there as a slice of life, traveling with these guys, and coming back around to Cherry, who sort of exists in a slightly different plane because he's a street poet and a little bit of an intellectual, and having that feeling of being trapped. So if you go through the movie, you'll see that all the stylization is tied to a story element or a character element.
Yeah, the aspect ratio shift in the second chapter was incredible. I loved how it almost felt like you were almost like you couldn't get out of it. Like you
Yeah.
were locked into that. It was really interesting. One of the things I found interesting was the Cherry chapter, chapter 3, and we learn about kind of the idea of his character going through basic training and then actually being thrown into a war zone. And that's the moment, like his Cherry moment specifically. And I'm not comparing war to filmmaking, but I would love to know for you, each of you, is there a Cherry moment for directing for each of you that you think about? And what I mean by that is you prep a film, you rehearse the movie, you get it going, and then you're on set, you yell action, and you're actually in it. Can you think about a moment in your filmmaking careers for each of you, that Cherry moment, that perspective shift that threw you into the moment like that?
I think, sorry, this camera just started flashing for some reason. It distracted me. I think it's a really fascinating question. I think one thing that hit us early in our careers, because we started off as like very like no budget, do it yourself filmmakers. And there's a moment on your growth arc as a filmmaker where you realize, oh, I want to be more ambitious as a filmmaker and try to get a real budget for a movie. And it's that moment where you realize that movies cost a lot of money to make. And if you're going to take a lot of money from somebody to make a movie, the movie has to earn a lot of money in order to justify that. And I think that was a big sort of coming of age moment for Joe and I as filmmakers, the understanding that like movies are sort of equal part art and equal part commerce. And that if you don't honor that about them, you're not going to get very far above the shoestring budget.
But you know, Joe, when you yell action on Winter Soldier and you're having these explosions go off, that video you guys posted the other day on your Instagram, that's got to be like a feeling where it's just like interesting perspective for you as a storyteller to be like dropped into the reality of actually filming that sequence.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, because we're, you know, it's you know, we put fantasy on screen for a lot of people to lose themselves in, you know, but it feels very weird when you've shut down a freeway or, you know, a major artery of a city just so you can blow something up or have people running around in costumes play acting. I always find that, you know, sort of a very weird existential perspective. But I will say that, you know, Ant's point is true. And there was a great story that, you know, when with Steven Soderbergh, who wrote Cherry Moment for Us, was he took us to lunch right after we made our first movie, which was this no budget credit card film. And he said to us, oh, you know, I've just made 4 movies in a row that didn't make any money. I'm in a lot of trouble. I don't know if anyone's going to make any more of my films. And I got to go make this movie called Out of Sight with this actor, George Clooney, from this TV show. And Ant and I were sitting there going, oh my God, man, this is the end of your career. Why would you do this? We watched over the next 3 years as he made what I think is one of the best movies of his career. And George Clooney is a legend, you know, and it taught us, oh, you can do great work with any kind of material, whether you deem it commercial or whether you deem it artistic, and everything in between. It's just what level of thought and what level of execution are you putting into it, and what story are you trying to tell?
Yeah. Well, congratulations to you guys. I appreciate that answer, Joe. They're wrapping me up. I just want to say thank you guys so much for all the movies you guys have made. And obviously this film, I think, is an absolute masterpiece from a filmmaking standpoint, from an emotional standpoint. It is truly an amazing rewatch too. I picked up on so many more things, and I think you guys are just brilliant storytellers, and you guys know that already. But thank you guys so much for your time today.
Thank you, Kevin. And look out if you watch it again. I think there's a Spider-Man Easter egg in there that no one has found yet.
Is there really?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
You know us. Arrested Development, call forward, call backwards. There's layers all over this movie. So there's lots of
Holland just told me that his brother Harry's character in this film is actually going to be in Spider-Man 3 as almost like a connection from the they're going to drop his character into Spider-Man 3. Like the MCU is going to be in that. It's amazing.
You're blowing my mind right now.
I know. Well, good to see you guys. Congratulations.
Thanks,
and thank
man.
you for your time. See you guys.
Always a pleasure, Kevin. Can't wait to see you in person, man.